Hi everybody, welcome back to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. And before we start today's review, as ever, big shout out, big thank you to all for continuing to like the videos, subscribing to the channel, commenting. I love the engagement that the videos bring to the viewers, and also keep sending those requests in for what you want to see, and we will do our best to bring you those shotguns. The gun we're going to look at today is from a brand. This is only the second time it's appeared on the channel, which is crazy really, because it is a huge name, particularly in classic shotguns, and it's actually a name that's probably synonymous with shooting, one of the biggest names in shooting, and that is Winchester. Now, the gun we're going to look at today is a Winchester 101 diamond grade. Now, I'm going to tell you how I acquired this gun. One of the things we do here at Eastfield Gunroom is we do specific shotgun sourcing. So what that means is if someone's got a particular gun they've spent years looking for, or they've always promised themselves, they get in touch, they tell us what they're looking for, and because of the years of experience, knowledge, contacts, etc., I go out and find it, and this is no exception. So the Winchester 101 actually goes back quite late, quite early. I think it's sort of 1967 or 8, Japanese made. Very successful throughout its life, its production life, particularly here in the UK, although the majority of what we tend to hear in the UK are sort of 1980s guns of these particular models. So the 101 was available in various guises. They did some very basic ones initially with black action and a bit of scroll work, which was kind of a competitor to the Miracle 800 at the time, which are the much older guns. Then they did a 101 XTR lightweight, which was a very popular model in this country because it was at a time when people were starting to move away from side by side into over and under. So I'm talking like the early 1980s. And so by having a lightweight over and under, it appealed to someone who was used to shooting say an English game gun at 6.5 pounds. And then they did the super grade and the pigeon grade, which was kind of the middle of the road, which the super grade got a bit of scroll on. Pigeon grade had got a very obscurely drawn pigeon, engraved pigeon on it, and then from there was a couple of different models of the diamond grade. Now the diamond grade sat just underneath the very top grade, which at the time was the Grand European. Now the Grand European was an absolute chunk of money. It's a gun we'll no doubt look at in future on the channel, but for now let's concentrate on the diamond grade and this particular gun, which is a Sporter. So the diamond grade, I believe, took its inspiration from an Italian gun at the time, which was called a white diamond, and it got the little diamonds on the action. It looked quite smart, and I would imagine that the guys in Japan saw that and thought, that's quite nice. Why don't we make it a much prettier version? Why don't we really ramp the level up of the diamond grade and we'll put it into the 101 series? I can't confirm or deny if that was true, but that's just the way I kind of look at it when I look back at similar guns that were available on the market at the time. So this gun, the production run of the Sporter was about 1984 to 1983 to 1986-ish, something like that, before the sort of the 5,000, 6,000 series, etc., which was the kind of end of Winchester here in the UK, certainly took over. But at the time, these were massively popular, affordable. They looked the part, they handled well. You got the Japanese reliability that you were getting from the Miracle and the Browning stable at the time. And these were, as the rest of the later Winchesters were, part of the Olin Cadenture group, which was, of course, in Japan, but the guns were imported directly from the States. What that meant is because here in the UK, we don't accept American proof marks. There is no proof houses in America. They all had to be proved here in the UK. So if you come across one of these older Winchesters or anything that was imported from the States, it will either have a Birmingham Knights proof stamp on it or a London proof stamp, in which case you will have the year of proofing just underneath the London proof stamp. So Winchesters, like I said before, very much pioneers of a lot of things to do with modern sporting shotguns. I think they pioneered the backbore barrel. This gun itself has got backbore barrels. We'll look at that in a minute. But certainly the multi-choke, wind choke. This was one of the first guns I can ever remember to come with factory-fitted multi-chokes. I believe this gun, like I said, to be about 1985, 1986. But prior to that, it was all the same sort of time because Browning incorporated multi-chokes into the Satori, which was a gun of a similar time period. And also you've got Miracle, and the first model they used multi-chokes in was the Miracle 3000, which was 1984, even though it was a dreadful shotgun. Okay, we'll start with the action. And the finish is not dissimilar to something you'd find on a modern Beretta 694. It's that kind of Nissan coating. It's like a semi-satin finish. Really, really smart, because you've got the dot, I'll take it apart. You've got the diamonds. So you've got a little diamond in the middle and bigger diamonds around the outside. Nice bit of border scroll work. And on the underside, you've got diamond grade, bit more engraving, the Winchester logo, and also the trigger guard is engraved. Now, the shape of the trigger on this particular gun interests me, because it was almost copied, in my opinion, from a Browning B25. That was kind of their sporting trigger that they did in the 1970s. It looked very, very similar to that. What's interesting with this is that the trigger is not adjustable, which if you look at the later models, the 5500, 6500, we've done a video on, etc., you did get an adjustable trigger. At the time, you didn't on this. Nice kind of, it is kind of a satin finish, like a brushed finish. Really, really smart looking, to be fair. And at the time, you know, there wouldn't have been a gun that looked like this, because we were still in the realms of, we want fine English scroll work, or we want a bit of game scene. And I think this gun kind of broke the mold in that respect, and that's why it was so popular. Now, the diamond grade was available as a skeet gun in 27-inch, and that had ported barrels. Again, at the time, mid-1980s, ported barrels were quite popular, particularly on the skeet scene, because people wanted short barrels. And essentially, because of that, they moved around, and the porting stopped the muzzle flip, which is a great idea. They did it in a trap version, 30 and 32, and the trap versions were multi-choke in the bottom barrel and full in the top, and they had a ramped rib with a big trap stock on the back of them. So, you know, you've got two major disciplines, particularly here in the UK, and they were selling an awful lot of these guns into people that were using them for those disciplines. The Sporter was only available in 28-inch. They may have produced one in Japan for the American market. I've never ever seen a Grand European, a diamond grade with a 30-inch barrel. Only ever 28 in a Sporter. So the barrels themselves, 28-inch, ventilated mid-rib, but only halfway down the gun. Now, I can only assume the reason for that is balance, because this gun does balance extremely well. So that's my opinion. We've got what I think is about an 11mm parallel rib with a center bead and a very, very slight ramp here at the edge. But again, I go on about this all the time, the quality of this gun. Look at that. Engine turned ejectors, engine turned barrels, engraved barrel wings. Really, really nicely done. You've got your WEC there, which, although that's an abbreviation for toilet, actually means wind choke. Okay. And again, this gun was sourced because of its condition. It just hasn't been used. 2 3/4-inch chambers. And I spoke about the overbore, and these are bored at 18.6. If you are lucky enough to shoot one of these guns, or you own one of these guns, you will appreciate that despite the fact that they're not particularly heavy, this is 7 pounds 9 ounces, they don't recoil a great deal. They just absolutely feel lovely out the box. So choke-wise, extended wind chokes. Now, there's a lot of interesting points with this particular gun, which is why I'm excited to show it to you. Now, in terms of the chokes, my memory of wind chokes, which are these little knurled end things that stick out at the end, again, you know, nobody had extended multi-chokes at the time. There was a couple of people that were doing precision chokes like Teague, like Pro Choke. Yes, you could have an extended one, but, you know, in terms of what was the norm, it was all about flush choke. So again, Winchester sort of pushed the boundaries, put an extended choke in a sporting gun. Now, historically, and from memory, all of these wind chokes that I can remember had got little dots around the outside of the knurl. And what you did is you had this Captain Hook arm choke here with a wooden handle to remove them. Now, this gun here has actually got castellations in the choke, and there's also a choke key which fits it, which is genuine. I'll show you in a minute. And I've never, ever seen one of those. So I can only assume that this is probably quite a late gun before they started looking at the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 series, etc. So wind chokes, 28-inch, 18.6, lovely engine turning all over the block, all over the ejectors. Forend iron, traditional Winchester, so it's got the kickers in the fore. And let's not forget, this is kind of a copy of a Browning. That's what the whole idea was with this. You know, John Moses Browning invented the Browning B25 in 1925, and from then on, ultimately everyone tried to copy it as a platform. So you've got kickers in the forend. Again, nicely finished, satin finished forend iron with a bit of engraving, a bit of scroll work around here. The forend iron is also nicely engraved. Interesting point, at the time, most forend irons were probably shorter than this. I think if you get a Browning, they're probably half the length. Beretta, again, you know, it used to be a button you push down that was even shorter in the pull, should we say, of the forend iron. So as we've mentioned, about the barrels, very nicely finished, you know, a real quality piece of kit. Nice deep engine turning on the ejectors, on the lumps of the barrels, and we've even got diamond grade Sporter, again nicely done. Now you only got this with either diamond grade or the Grand European, but you've got this kind of this recess in the checker and in the rib, and it's kind of scrolled in diamond grade Sporter. Again, a nice touch. Now balance wise, do the important balance test. So remember the gun weighs £7 9 ounce. Just going to put that choke back in because we don't want that to affect the results, do we? Trigger, incidentally, is mechanical. All 101s are mechanical triggers. So, £7 9 ounces, 28 inches, just in front of the hinge pin. For a gun off the shelf, that's not bad. May have to put a tiny bit of lead in the back or a slightly heavier recoil pad, but that's not bad at all. So, on to the wood. As with the majority of Winchester, certainly the higher grade ones, it is all American walnut. So what we've got here is we've got some nicely figured, very red colour, which again is not unusual. If you find a Winchester of this period, they did like to use alkanet or red root oil in the finishing of the wood. So you will get this kind of deep red colour. Polyurethane, as you would expect, because that's everything that came out of Japan. For certainly around Winchester was polyurethane at this moment in time. More so with the clay guns, because I think they recognise the fact that they're going to be out in a lot of bad weathers, and you just wanted the rain to run off it. Continuing the diamond grade theme, we've got a nice little diamond horn, I think, something like that at the back of the back strap, and we've also got one in the bottom of the pistol grip. Full tang, which is what you would have got in something like a Miracle at the time period. And interestingly enough, a wooden butt plate. But wooden butt plates, and certainly butt plates that allowed you to not snag the gun when you mounted it, were again popular at the time. Again, just to reaffirm, this gun's done very little work. Hand checkering, nicely checkered. You've got kind of 3 points, if you like a triple point, but it looks the part. It suits the gun. Onto the forend. Semi-beaver tail. It's not a really big fat beaver tail, but you've got this nice sort of subtle lip here, double point checkering with an extra bit of detail. And you know, if you look at a lower grade 101, then you wouldn't have got this. A lot of people don't realise this, but the diamond grade, like I said, despite the fact it was a lot less money than a Grand European, which was the top end of the Winchester range in the 101 at the time, this was just below it. Okay, so if you got a diamond grade and you were going out on a Sunday morning shooting in the 80s in your Ganton skeet vest, you know, you were someone. That was a cool gun to have, that was. I love nothing more than an old oily cardboard box full of brown paper that goes along as provenance with the gun, as people who watch the channel regularly will know. And one of the things I am excited about with this particular gun is we have got the original cardboard box. As I spoke about in the Winchester 6500 review, the 6500 and that series of guns, which were made famous by AJ Smith, was kind of the beginning of the end of Winchester UK, which was a big shame, because things like competitors' guns coming in ABS cases or nice presentation cases as standard, whereas with a Winchester you had to buy one. Now you can actually buy a diamond grade specific case. It's like this dreadful green khaki colour with brown corners, and it's got diamond grade wrapped all the way around it, you know, continual writing. But you had to buy one at the time, and a lot of people felt aggrieved because they weren't cheap, you know. They could buy an equivalent Browning and get a nice case, or equivalent Beretta and get a nice case. And I think one of those things from a presentation period really affect the sales of Winchester towards the back end of their reign in the late 1980s in the UK. So, original cardboard box, you've got the Winchester horseman on there. Absolutely original, pertains to this particular gun. Unfortunately, someone's pulled the edge of the sticker off, which has annoyed me greatly. But you can see the serial number there, which ties in perfectly with the serial number on the gun. Inside, you had a little cardboard box that said parts inside. So Winchester Classic Double. So there was already a a name tie-in with classic doubles, which is what, of course, Winchester later became in sort of 1989 onwards, I believe. You've got in here, you've got your original wind chokes, what we've talked about. Smart little chokes. They've got the choking denomination stamped here. You can see that quite clearly. But what I initially thought when I opened the packet was, oh, we've got a pair of Mickey Mouse ears. This is actually an original, genuine choke key. Now, I've never, ever seen one of these. I've only ever seen the little wooden hook, like Captain Hook, that goes round the knurling. The knurling used to have little dots on it, which you're hooked into. I can only assume, like I said, this is a much later gun, and the fact that the choke key used to slip, this was a reinvention of the design, and that's why we got Mickey Mouse. Alongside that, look at that, more chokes. So 6 chokes in total, which again was kind of the same. If you bought a Browning back in the day, you would have got a cylinder and a skeet, so you'd have got a full complement of chokes. We didn't get a pair of Mickey Mouse ears. Sadly, there's no paperwork with this one, but we have got the original cardboard sleeves for the stock, the barrels, and the spare parts. And it just kind of ties in with the whole fact that this gun has been loved, cherished, looked after. And that kind of wraps it up. The 101, hugely popular worldwide. The diamond grade, lots of them sold, lots of them used, lots of them loved. But to find one in this condition is extremely rare. That's been the Winchester 101 XTR Diamond Grade Sporter. That's a mouthful, isn't it? From me, Matthew Morgan at Eastfield Gunroom. Any comments you've got, comment below. We'll do our best to help you. Like I said, don't forget the specific shotgun sourcing service that we offer. This is a classic example of the guns that we can source. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing to the channel, because we can't produce this content without you guys. Request reviews, absolutely, but also any general topics you want us to talk about. Obviously, there's a lot regarding certainly steel sharp, but if you want to talk about chokes, buying a gun, whatever, just let us know and we'll do our best to bring it to you. Don't forget to check out the website. You can send me an email directly with anything you want to know shotgun related. I'll be happy to help as best I can. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.